So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Female Gaara? So let's start the series. Prologue, The Vessel of Sand. The desert remembers. It remembers the night a child was born under a dying moon, a vessel carved from love and terror. It remembers the scream of a mother cursed, the tears of a father turned to ice, and the first cry of a girl who would know only loneliness. Her name was Gaara of the Sand. The Achibi's growl was her lullaby, her mother's will to kill sealed within the very sand meant to protect her was her only proof of existence. She grew tall and silent, a pale statue in a world of shifting dunes, her eyes ringed with sleepless nights. Love was a word written in a language of blood and assassination attempts. Her heart became a tomb, sealed with the name Shikaku. The title Kazekage, earned through rivers of her enemy's blood, was just another layer of armor. But the desert also remembers the boy who did not look away. A boy with sunlight in his hair and ocean-deep blue eyes, who carried a monster of his own, yet smiled as if he'd never known the dark. He did not see a monster. He saw her. This is their story. Chapter 1, The Uninvited Son. The wind over Sunagakure was hot and dry, carrying the scent of clay and iron. From the highest balcony of the Kazekage Tower, Gaara looked down upon her village. Her hands, pale against the dark railing, did not tremble. The sand in the gourd on her back hummed a constant, quiet tune of vigilance. Her subjects below moved with a respect that was 2 parts awe, 1 part fear. She preferred it that way. Fear was predictable. Love was a battlefield she had long since abandoned. Kazekage-sama. Baki's voice was a low rumble behind her. The Konoha delegation will arrive within the hour. The Hokage's personal guard is with him. A flicker, microscopic, in the calm green pools of her eyes. Understood. Naruto Uzumaki. The name was a pebble dropped into the still waters of her being, sending ripples she could not control. He was a living paradox, a Jinchuriki like her, yet embraced by his village, a holder of immense, devastating power, yet radiating a stubborn, undefeated warmth. He had been the first to name her pain, to see the child behind the monster's eyes. He had called her his friend. The word still felt foreign, a delicate glass artifact she was afraid to hold. The welcoming ceremony was formal, a dance of politics under the relentless sun. Gaara stood regal and remote in her white Kazekage robes, her voice calm and measured as she greeted the 7th Hokage, Naruto Uzumaki. And there he was. Older, broader, the lines of responsibility etched beside his still bright eyes. But the grin was the same, a supernova of earnest joy. When his gaze found hers, it didn't skim the surface of her title. It delved deep, seeking the girl he'd fought, the friend he'd saved. She gave a slight, imperceptible nod. "Welcome to Sunagakure, Hokage-sama," she said, her voice cool as a desert night. "Gaara," he said, bypassing formality with typical Naruto grace, his smile softening into something more genuine, more private. "It's really good to see you." The council elders stiffened. She merely inclined her head again. "The feeling is mutual." The meetings were tedious, trade routes, border security, joint chunin exams. Gaara spoke little, her analysis sharp and concise. Naruto, though clearly straining against the confines of diplomacy, surprised her with his political acumen. He'd learned to channel his passion into strategy. Yet, his eyes kept drifting to her, a silent question in their blue depths. "Why do you look at me like that?" Her mind whispered. "Do you seek the monster to reassure yourself of your own humanity? Or do you seek the person you believe is still trapped inside?" The question was answered that evening. A rogue element, remnants of a faction that despised the alliance, launched an attack during the state dinner. Explosive tags bloomed at the perimeter. Panic shattered the polite air. Before Gaara could even lift a finger, a sphere of sand formed around the entire delegation table, absorbing the blast with a dull thump. Her will was absolute, her expression unchanging. Outside the shield, her sand moved like a living storm, disarming and entrapping the assailants with ruthless efficiency. When the sand shield receded, dust motes danced in the lantern light. Naruto was standing before her, not in a defensive stance, but relaxed. A smile touched his lips, not of amusement, but of profound recognition. "You didn't have to protect me, you know," he said, his voice low so only she could hear. "I've gotten pretty strong." Gaara's sand settled back into her gourd. She met his gaze. "It is my duty to protect all guests within these walls, Hokage-sama." A perfectly political answer. But Naruto's eyes saw through it. He saw the instinct, the unthinking protection that went beyond duty. He saw the echo of the boy who had once protected only himself, now shielding an entire village, and him along with it. "Yeah," he whispered, the noise of the cleanup swirling around them. "But thanks. For back then, and for now." That night, on her balcony, Gaara touched the railing where the day's heat had bled away into coolness. Her sand whispered of his chakra signature, still vivid in the courtyard below, a blazing, warm sun contrasted against her own cool, lunar flow. A strange tightness lodged itself beneath her ribs. It wasn't fear. It wasn't rage. It felt dangerously like the beginning of a thaw. Chapter 2, Echoes in the Dunes. The threat was identified, a splinter cell calling themselves the Sun's Scourge, fanatics who believed Jinchuriki were abominations that had weakened the great villages. Their base was suspected to be in the shifting canyons west of Suna. A joint Konoha-Suna tracking mission was deemed necessary. I will lead the Suna contingent personally, Gaara stated in the war room, her tone brooking no argument. The map glowed between them. Then I'm coming with you, Naruto said, arms crossed. Shikamaru sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Naruto, you're the Hokage. Sending both Kage on a single recon mission is a tactical. It's the right move, Naruto interrupted, his eyes never leaving Gaara's. These guys have a hard-on for Jinchuriki. They'll be expecting her. They won't be expecting us together. And besides, he added, a fierce protectiveness flashing in his eyes, no one knows what it's like better than we do. The word we hung in the air, a bridge between their two isolated histories. Gaara held his gaze for a long moment, then gave a single, slow nod. Agreed. A show of combined strength may deter further foolishness. They left at dawn, a small, elite team. The desert was vast and silent, a landscape of breathtaking, brutal beauty. Gaara moved with an innate grace, her sand occasionally shifting to guide them around unstable ground or hidden predators. Naruto walked beside her, his presence a constant, warm pressure against her solitary world. They made camp as the sun bled out over the horizon, painting the dunes in violet and gold. The others took first watch, leaving Naruto and Gaara by the low burning fire. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of the things they had never said. Does it ever get quiet for you? Naruto asked suddenly, poking the fire with a stick. Inside, I mean. Gaara stared into the flames. The Ichibi's voice is a constant. A sandstorm in the mind. I have made an arrangement with it. The silence I seek is my own. Naruto nodded, understanding in a way no one else ever could. Kurama grumbles a lot. But it's different now. More like a grumpy roommate. He chuckled, but it faded. Back then, it was just hate. So much hate, and all of it pointed at me. You learned to turn that hate into strength, she said softly. You transformed your curse into a bridge. So did you. He looked at her, the firelight dancing in his eyes. You're the Kazekage. They love you. They respect me. There is a difference. The words came out colder than she intended. She saw a flicker of pain in his expression, and something in her chest twisted. It is enough, she amended, almost gently. Is it? He pressed, his voice dropping to a whisper. Gaara, after everything, don't you think you deserve more than just enough? Her breath caught. The sand at her feet stirred minutely. No one asked her such questions. No one dared imply she had wants. What I deserve is irrelevant, she stated, her walls rising. My purpose is the village. That's what I used to say. Naruto leaned forward, his intensity a tangible force. That my purpose was to be Hokage, to get everyone to acknowledge me. But it's not just about a title, Gaara. It's about the people who see you. Really see you. Like I see you. The world narrowed to the space between them, to the crackle of the fire and the pounding of her own blood in her ears. His words were an invasion, a siege on her fortified heart. She should deflect. She should retreat. Instead, she found herself asking, "What do you see, Naruto?" He didn't smile. His face was solemn, open, unbearably honest. I see someone incredibly strong. Someone who protects what she loves with everything she has. I see the girl who was so lonely it hurt just to look at her, and I see the woman who never let that loneliness make her cruel. I see my friend. Friend. The word held a new weight, a new resonance that terrified her. To be known was to have a weakness. To be seen was to be vulnerable. Before she could formulate a response, a defense, an acknowledgement, anything, the air shattered. A hail of Senbon, tipped with chakra-disrupting seals, rained down from the cliff above. Gaara's sand erupted on pure instinct, forming a canopy over them both. Naruto was already a blur of motion, shadow clones multiplying to engage the figures descending upon them. The battle was swift and brutal. The cultists were skilled, their techniques designed to dismantle sand defenses and overwhelm with numbers. Gaara fought with chilling precision, her sand a torrent of crushing force. Naruto was a golden whirlwind, his Rasengan shattering weapons and rock alike. They fought back to back, a perfect, unspoken synchronization. Her sand caught an attacker he didn't see, his clone intercepted a strike aimed at her blind spot. It was a dance of absolute trust, a language only they could speak. When the last assailant lay subdued, Gaara stood amidst the settling dust, her breathing barely elevated. Naruto landed beside her, a scratch on his cheek. They were just a distraction, Gaara said, her senses stretching out through the sand miles into the earth. A probing attack. Their main force is elsewhere. Naruto wiped the blood from his cheek, his jaw set. Then we find them. Together. As they regrouped with their team, Gaara felt the ghost of his warmth where his back had pressed against hers. The echo of his words, "I see you," lingered louder than the Ichibi's growl. For the first time in her life, Gaara of the Sand was not just afraid of being alone. She was afraid of what it meant to no longer want to be. Chapter 3, The Citadel of Wind and Hatred. The probing attack had left a trail not of physical evidence, but of chakra resonance. A bitter, metallic signature that clung to the sand like a poison. Gaara knelt, her palm flat against the dune, her senses flowing through the endless grains. "They're moving," she murmured, her eyes closed. Northwest. Towards the Canyon of Echoes. Shikamaru frowned, studying his own map. A defensive nightmare. High ground everywhere, perfect for ambushes. Sending a full force in there is. A trap, Gaara finished, opening her eyes. They wish to lure us into terrain that neutralizes my Sand's advantage and forces close quarters combat. Naruto cracked his knuckles, a fierce grin spreading. So they're scared of your long-range game. Good. Means we've got the advantage before we even start. He looked at her, the strategic glint in his eye a testament to the Hokage he'd become. We don't play their game. We make them play ours. Their plan was audacious, a blend of Suna's tactical genius and Konoha's unpredictability. While Kankuro and a team of Sunanin created a convincing diversionary force at the canyon's mouth, Gaara and Naruto would ascend the highest plateau, the Wind's Mantle, using a combination of her sand platform and his chakra-enhanced agility. From there, they could pinpoint the main cell and execute a decapitation strike. The ascent was a silent ballet. Gaara stood on a disk of compacted sand, Naruto beside her, his hand lightly on her shoulder for balance as they rose on a pillar of granulated earth. The wind here was a physical force, howling with a voice that sounded like forgotten ghosts. It tugged at her robes, her hair. Naruto's grip tightened, steadying. It's like the world screaming, he shouted over the gale. It always screams here, she replied, her voice carried away by the wind. These stones remember every battle, every death. My own blood is in this rock. He looked at her, and she knew he understood. They were both children of landscapes scarred by war. They reached the summit. Below, a hidden network of caves and rope bridges spiderwebbed across the canyon's heart. At its center, in a natural amphitheater, gathered nearly 50 figures, their white robes stark against the red stone. A leader preached, his voice amplified by the canyon's acoustics, venomous words about purifying the world of tailed beast filth. Naruto's expression hardened, the playful light gone, replaced by a cold, focused fury. They talk about us like we're not even people. To them, we are not, Gaara said, her voice devoid of emotion. She was analyzing, calculating. We are concepts. Symbols of pain. Erasing us erases their own history of failure. Then let's remind them, Naruto said, his chakra beginning to simmer, a golden aura flickering at his edges. Let's remind them that the people behind the power are the ones who decide what it's for. Their plan was simple, swift, overwhelming force. But as Gaara raised her hands, ready to summon a wave of sand to engulf the amphitheater, the leader below looked up. Directly at them. A smile split his face. Now, he bellowed. Seal tags, hidden across the plateau, flared to life. Not explosive tags. Suppression tags. A dome of crackling, violet energy erupted around the summit, humming with a frequency that made Gaara's teeth ache and the sand on her skin tremble, becoming sluggish, heavy. A chakra-dampening field, she hissed, her control wavering. The sand in her gourd felt like lead. And a sensory trap. Naruto realized. They knew we'd take the high ground. They wanted us here. From caves beneath the plateau, a dozen specialized shinobi emerged. They wore intricate lenses over their eyes and moved with the jerky precision of insect handlers. Their hands weaved signs in unison. Magnet release, iron sand mist, one cried. Black, metallic sand, a perversion of her father's technique, spewed forth, clouding the air. It wasn't meant to crush, but to interfere, to seep into her control and disrupt it. The familiar grit of her sand became a stranger, fighting her will. Naruto moved instantly, a wall of shadow clones forming around Gaara. I'll clear the air. You find the core of their jutsu. He plunged into the mist, Rasengan spinning, creating vortices that scattered the iron sand. But more replaced it. The suppressors hummed louder. Gaara felt a bead of sweat trace her temple, a sensation so rare it was alarming. Her sand shield around them thickened, but it was draining. She was used to an endless well, now she felt each grain like a drop of blood. Gaara. Naruto's voice, strained. A clone poofed beside her, its memory transferring. The leader's staff. It's the focus for the dampening field. She saw it through the dispersing mist. The man held a tall, ornate staff crowned with a glowing purple crystal. Her eyes narrowed. A direct, precise strike was needed. But her sand was too slow, too heavy under the field. Naruto followed her gaze. He didn't speak. He simply met her eyes and gave a sharp, confident nod. Trust me. He launched himself forward, not at the leader, but at the heaviest concentration of enemies, drawing their fire, a brilliant, shouting diversion. Over here, you bigots! Fight the real thing! For a fraction of a second, all attention was on the blazing Hokage. It was all Gaara needed. She didn't fight the heaviness. She embraced it. Drawing on every ounce of will, she didn't command the sand outside her gourd. She commanded the sand on her body, the absolute defense that was part of her very flesh. A thin, razor-sharp line of it, no thicker than a wire, shot from her fingertip. It was not about mass. It was about precision, about the unbreakable will of the mother who was both her curse and her protection. The sand wire, imbued with her furious, focused chakra, streaked through the chaos, unseen. It pierced the purple crystal on the staff with a sound like shattering ice. The dampening field flickered and died. The effect was instantaneous. The oppressive weight vanished. The connection to her element roared back, vibrant and furious. The very plateau beneath their feet answered her rage. Her eyes, usually so calm, blazed with emerald fire. You desecrate the sand with your hatred, her voice echoed, amplified by 1,000 swirling grains. You know nothing of what it means to carry a world inside you. She clenched her fist. The ground beneath the cultists erupted. Not in a wave, but in a forest of grasping, crushing hands of sand, each one a monument to a loneliness they could never comprehend. The amphitheater became her gallery of judgment. Naruto landed beside her as the last cries were silenced. The golden aura around him faded. He was breathing heavily, but his eyes were on her, on the raw power, the terrifying beauty of her unleashed might. The silence returned, broken only by the mournful wind. Gaara's sand settled, leaving the cultists entrapped, unconscious. The fight was over. She turned, the fire in her eyes guttering out, replaced by a sudden, deep exhaustion. The backlash of pushing her power through the suppressor hit her, her knees buckled, just slightly. Naruto was there in an instant. Not catching her, she would not allow that, but standing solidly beside her, his shoulder a firm, warm presence against hers, holding her steady. Hey, he said softly, all the battle fury gone from his voice. I've got you. She leaned into that warmth, just for a second, drawing strength from it. The intimacy of it was more overwhelming than any battle. Their ideology is a weed, she said, her voice tired. Cut it down, and it grows elsewhere, fed by deeper fears. Then we keep cutting, he said, his gaze sweeping the captured fanatics. And we plant something better in its place. He looked back at her. You were amazing. Scary, but amazing. A compliment. It should have meant nothing. Yet, it warmed her from the inside, a gentle counter to the desert's chill. As they waited for the cleanup teams, they sat on the edge of the plateau, legs dangling over the abyss. The sun was setting again, painting the canyon in blood and gold. Back there, Naruto began, uncharacteristically hesitant. When you were trapped, for a second, he stopped, grappling with the memory. It felt like when I saw you dead, back during the Akatsuki attack. That same, cold emptiness. Gaara stared at the horizon. She remembered that feeling too, the nothingness before his stubborn light had dragged her back. I am difficult to kill, she said, a faint, almost invisible curve touching her lips. You have seen to that. He bumped her shoulder gently with his. Damn right I have. And I'll keep doing it. No matter how scary your sand gets. The fear she'd felt earlier, the fear of not wanting to be alone, morphed into something else. A quiet, terrifying certainty. This man, with his relentless sun, was not just melting the ice around her heart. He was seeping into the cracks, reaching the dormant seeds beneath, and promising, simply by his presence, that something could grow there. She did not pull away from the touch of his shoulder. She let the shared silence, filled with the echoes of battle and the promise of a coming night, speak for her. The journey back would be long. The politics would resume. But here, on the edge of the world, a line had been crossed. There was no going back. Chapter 4, The Garden of Stone and Silence. The victory in the canyon was Pyrrhic. Interrogations revealed the sun's scourge was not a rogue cell, but a symptom, a fanatical arm of a more insidious sickness festering in the shadows of both nations. Disgruntled daimyo, old money nobles who had seen their influence wane in the era of Kage and shinobi alliances, were funneling gold and information. Their goal was not just to kill Jinchuriki, but to shatter the very alliance that threatened their antiquated power. Gaara stood before the Suna Council, the news hanging in the air like a bad odor. The threat is internal as much as it is external. Our security has been compromised at a fundamental level. An elder, Yom, his face a map of old wars, sneered. And this intelligence comes from a joint operation with Konoha. How convenient that our problems always seem to require their intervention, Kazekage-sama. Or perhaps it is your personal connection to the Hokage that clouds your judgment? The room chilled by 20 degrees. The sand in the corner of the chamber stirred, a soft, deadly whisper. Gaara's expression did not change, but her eyes became chips of jade. My judgment, she said, her voice soft as settling dust, is based on evidence extracted by our own interrogators. My connection to the Hokage is what allowed us to uncover this rot before it consumed us. Question my methods again, and you will answer to the sand. The silence that followed was absolute. She had not raised her voice, but the promise of annihilation was clear. She was no longer the unstable weapon they feared, she was the calm, absolute sovereign they had created, and she would not be challenged. Later, in the austere peace of her office, the calm fractured. The accusation, your personal connection, echoed. It was true. Naruto was a vulnerability. A glorious, warm, terrifying vulnerability. To target her, one only had to target him. The thought sent a lance of pure, primal fear through her, a sensation entirely alien. She had never feared for another person. Not like this. A familiar, blunt chakra signature appeared at her window. She didn't turn as Naruto landed lightly on the sill, his silhouette framed by the moon. Heard the council meeting got frosty, he said, his tone carefully light. Politics is a slow poison, she replied, still gazing at her desk. They fear what they cannot control. Our alliance. Our power. Us. He stepped into the room, his presence filling the sterile space. Let them fear it. It's keeping them safe. Finally, she looked at him. The worry she felt must have shown, just a sliver, because his playful demeanor melted away. Gaara? What's wrong? You are a target, she stated flatly. A more effective one than I. To wound me, they would aim for you. This, connection. It is a tactical liability. He crossed the room in 2 strides, stopping before her desk. He didn't touch her, but his closeness was an embrace. Is that all it is? A tactical liability? Her breath hitched. She forced her voice to remain steady. It is a fact. No, he said, his blue eyes holding hers, refusing to let her hide. It's a choice. My choice to be here. Your choice to let me in. They can try to use it. They will fail. Because what they don't get is that this? He gestured between them, his voice dropping to a fierce, passionate whisper. This isn't a weakness. It's what makes us stronger than they'll ever be. They're fighting for power. We're fighting for people. For each other. His words were a battering ram against the last of her inner fortifications. She had no defense against such naked, unwavering faith. The fear didn't vanish, but it transformed, alloyed with a stubborn, blazing hope. You are infuriatingly optimistic, she murmured, a faint, real smile touching her lips for the first time that day. Yeah, well, you're infuriatingly brave, he shot back, grinning. So we're even. The solution, when it came, was Shikamaru's. A diplomatic gala, he announced to both Kage, sprawled in Gaara's office. Hosted by the fire daimyo in the capital. All the noble families will be there. The ones pulling the strings. If we can publicly, and I mean very publicly, demonstrate the unbreakable strength of the Suna-Konoha alliance, make it a spectacle of unity, it cuts the ground from under the conspirators. They thrive on doubt and secrecy. We drown them in light. Naruto groaned. A party? With fancy clothes and stupid small talk? That's worse than fighting 10 pains. Gaara, however, saw the brutal elegance of it. A battlefield of silk and words. A place where her sand would be useless, and her every flaw would be on display. A fresh kind of terror. It is a sound strategy, she said, ignoring the tightness in her chest. Konoha in spring was a riot of color and scent, a stark contrast to Suna's majestic sterility. The Hokage's residence was warm, chaotic, and full of life. Gaara stood on a guest balcony, feeling profoundly displaced. The kimono provided for the gala was a masterpiece of Suna-designed deep crimson sandsilk embroidered with subtle gold patterns of desert flora, but it felt like a costume. She heard him before she saw him. Wow. She turned. Naruto stood in the doorway, dressed in the formal white and red robes of the Hokage. He looked regal. Commanding. And utterly astonished, his eyes wide as he took her in. You look, he struggled, uncharacteristically lost for words. You look like the Kazekage. It was the highest compliment he could have given. He saw not just a woman in a beautiful dress, but the leader, the strength, the essence of her. You look like the Hokage, she replied, the corner of her mouth lifting. It suits you. The gala was a glittering cage. Chandeliers blazed, music swelled, and a sea of silk and judgment swirled around them. Gaara moved with glacial grace, a desert island in a perfumed ocean. Noble women tittered behind fans, lords offered bows that were just a shade too shallow, their eyes assessing, dismissing. They see the gourd, she said quietly to Naruto as they walked, her voice barely audible over the din. They see the tattoos. They see the monster first. Then they're blind, Naruto said, his hand finding the small of her back, not possessively, but protectively. A steady, guiding pressure. All they see is a story they're too scared to understand. Look at me. She did. In the middle of that crowded, hostile room, he was an anchor. When the fire daimyo himself, a man of cultivated mildness and immense power, approached, the crowd parted. Kazekage-sama, he intoned. A rare honor. Your distinctive appearance is quite striking. One hears such tales of your power. It must be a heavy burden, such a volatile gift. It was a masterfully veiled insult, questioning her control, her humanity. 100 diplomatic replies flashed through Gaara's mind, all cold, all cutting. But before she could speak, Naruto stepped forward, just half a pace. Yeah, it's a heavy burden, Naruto agreed, his voice carrying effortlessly, bright and firm. The same kind of heavy burden it is to protect an entire country, like you do, Lord Daimyo. Lucky for all of us, Gaara's stronger than her burden. She turned it into the will to protect her whole village. That's not volatility, sir. That's the kind of strength that builds eras of peace. The kind of strength Suna and Konoha are lucky to have on their side. The daimyo blinked, momentarily speechless. The surrounding nobles fell silent. Naruto had not defended her as a woman, or as a friend. He had elevated her as an equal, a pillar of the world order. He had reframed her entire existence from a threat to a cornerstone. The moment passed, the daimyo moved on with a thoughtful nod, and the conversation resumed. But the atmosphere had shifted. The stares held a new wariness, a touch of respect. Later, Gaara needed air. She found a secluded stone garden behind the palace, a place of raked gravel and silent, ancient pines. The moon was high, bathing the world in silver. She heard his footsteps on the gravel. He came to stand beside her, having shed his formal overrobe. He was just Naruto again. You didn't have to do that, she said, staring at the patterns and the stones. Do what? Defend me. I am capable of my own defenses. I know, he said simply. That wasn't defense. That was just telling the truth. She shook her head, a slight, frustrated motion. You show me a version of myself I cannot see. You reflect back, something whole. When I look at myself, I still see the cracks. He was quiet for a long time. The only sound was the wind in the pines, a softer echo of her desert gales. You want to know what I see when I look at you now? He finally asked, his voice so soft it was almost part of the night. I don't see the cracks. I see the gold. She turned to him, confused. There's this art thing, he fumbled, uncharacteristically poetic. Kintsugi. Where they fix broken pottery with lacquer mixed with gold powder. They don't hide the breaks. They make them part of the design, the most beautiful part. Because the piece has a history. It lived. It survived. He reached out, his fingers hovering just beside her cheek, not touching, but she felt the warmth of them. That's you, Gaara. You're not broken. You're meticulously, beautifully repaired. With your own strength. With your love for your family. With your duty. Your cracks are filled with gold. And they're what make you the most incredible person I've ever known. Tears. A hot, shocking pressure behind her eyes. She had not cried since she was a child, since she learned tears only brought more pain. She fought it, turning her face away, but one traitorous streak of silver escaped, tracing a path down her pale cheek. He saw it. His breath caught. And then, with a reverence that shattered her completely, he closed the infinitesimal distance. His thumb, calloused and gentle, brushed the tear away. The touch was electric, a seismic event in the quiet garden. Don't hide, he whispered, his forehead coming to rest gently against hers, their breaths mingling. Not from me. Never from me. In that moment, surrounded by stone and silence, Gaara of the Sand did something she had never done before. She leaned into the touch. She let the wall crumble, not in a catastrophic collapse, but in a conscious, willing surrender. She let him see the girl who was scared, who was tired, who was desperately, overwhelmingly in love with the sun that had refused to abandon her desert. She didn't say it. Not yet. But when her hand came up to cover his, to hold it against her face, the message was transmitted in a language older than words. A pact was sealed, not between Kage, but between two souls who had traveled through the deepest darkness to find a shared light. Above them, the moon watched, its cold light now feeling like a benediction. Chapter 5, The Golden Storm. The Gaala's success was a knife in the dark to the conspirators. Unity was their enemy. So, they chose chaos. The intelligence came too late. A covert team, funded by the disgraced nobles and employing forbidden Fuinjutsu scholars, had already infiltrated Sunagakure's deepest archives. Their target was not Gaara herself, but the original, imperfect seal placed upon her by her father, the fourth Kazekage. Their goal, not to kill her, but to unweave it. To trigger a forced, catastrophic transformation of Shikaku that would ravage Suna, discredit Gaara as a failed weapon, and force Konoha to either destroy its ally or be destroyed by it. Gaara felt it the moment the ritual began. It was not pain, but a sudden, terrifying silence. The constant, grumbling presence of the Ichibi in her mind, the desert storm she had learned to navigate, vanished. In its place was a hollow, sucking void. Then, a seismic roar of pure, untethered hatred flooded the emptiness, 1,000 times louder than she had ever known. It was Shikaku's essence, but amplified, twisted by the agonizing rupture of the seal that had been part of her since infancy. She was in her office when it hit. One moment she was reviewing border reports, the next she was on her knees, sand erupting from her gourd not as an extension of her will, but as a thrashing, independent entity. The room fractured. Vicious, uncontrolled spikes of sand shot in every direction. Her own absolute defense, the sand that clung to her skin, seethed and bulged, threatening to consume her. Freedom! Wretched girl! I will grind your bones to dust. The voice was inside her skull, shattering her thoughts. She clutched her head, a raw, animal sound tearing from her throat. Through the tsunami of malice, one clear, desperate thought formed: Naruto. Naruto was in the guest quarters when Kurama's growl rumbled through his mind. Uzumaki. The one-tail seal is breaking. That sandwoman is losing control. Fast. Ice flooded Naruto's veins. He didn't think. He moved. A single shadow clone burst into existence to alert Shikamaru and the guards, while his real body became a blur of yellow light, shattering the window and streaking across the moonlit desert towards the Kazekage Tower. He could already see it, a vortex of wild, dark sand beginning to swirl around the peak, like a sandstorm born from a single, tortured soul. He landed on a buckling balcony. The scene inside was a nightmare. Gaara was curled in the center of the maelstrom, her body half submerged in rebellious sand, her face a mask of agony and terrifying concentration. Her green eyes, when they flicked to his, held no recognition, only a feral panic and a depth of pain that stopped his heart. Gaara. Her name was a lifeline he threw into the storm. Her eyes locked onto his, and for a fleeting second, the chaos stilled. "And, Naruto, run," she gasped, the words shredded by the Ichibi's will. "It's taking me." "Like hell it is," he roared, stepping into the room. The sand lashed at him, but his own crimson chakra flickered to life, deflecting the worst of it. He didn't advance on her. He knelt, just at the edge of the whipping tendrils, making himself small, non-threatening. "Listen to me. You're stronger than this. You've always been stronger. Foolish Ninetales host. She is mine." The voice boomed from Gaara's mouth, but it was not hers. "Shut up." Naruto snarled, his own eyes flicking red for a moment. "I'm not talking to you." He focused back on Gaara, his voice dropping, softening into an urgent plea. "Gaara. Come back. The seal's breaking, but you are not. You're the Kazekage. You're Temari's sister. Kankoro's sister. You're my friend. His voice cracked. "You're the one I see. The one with the gold in the cracks. Hold on to that. Hold on to me." He reached out his hand, palm open, into the storm of sand. It was the most vulnerable gesture imaginable. The sand could shred his arm to the bone. But he didn't flinch. His blue eyes were wide, unwavering, an ocean of faith in the heart of the desert's madness. Inside the tempest, Gaara was drowning. Shikaku's centuries of imprisonment and rage were a tidal wave, crushing her identity. But Naruto's voice was a spike of pure light in the depths. The one with the gold in the cracks. His face, his outstretched hand, they were memories more solid than the sand trying to consume her. His promise under the Konoha moon. His defense in the glittering hall. His tears for her long ago. "I am not my pain," she thought, the idea a fragile, glowing ember. "I am what I built from it." With a scream that was both agony and triumph, she fought not against the Ichibi, but for control of her own soul. She forced her arm up, through the resisting sand that was part of her yet fighting her. Her fingers, trembling, stretched towards his. Their fingertips brushed. The moment they connected, a circuit completed. Naruto's chakra, warm, blazing, stubbornly compassionate, surged down the bridge of their touch. Kurama, within him, snorted. "Idiotic sentiment, but fine. If we let the one-tail rampage now, it'll be a pain later." A flood of perfect, golden Ninetales chakra joined Naruto's own, not to suppress, but to steady. It flowed into Gaara, meeting the raging, chaotic energy of the ruptured seal. It did not fight the sand. It did what Naruto always did, it understood. It synced. Gaara's sand, touched by the golden chakra, began to glow. The wild, dark storm calmed, the particles shimmering like a billion specks of captured sunlight. The violent spikes retracted, melting into a swirling, beautiful aurora of gold and ochre around them. The pressure in the room shifted from one of annihilation to one of immense, stabilized power. The rogue sand sealing team, bursting into the room for the final phase of their ritual, froze. They saw not a monster breaking free, but something entirely new. Two Jinchuriki, hands clasped, bathed in a harmonious vortex of golden sand and golden light. Their chakras were distinct yet perfectly intertwined, a duet of devastating potential, held in absolute, loving control. Gaara stood, pulled upright by his hand. Her eyes were clear, their green now speckled with flecks of brilliant gold. The Ichibi's roar was still there, but muted, contained within a new lattice, not a prison of fear, but a covenant of will, reinforced by a bond stronger than any Fuinjutsu. You, the lead sealer stammered, his tools falling from his hands. Gaara looked at them, then at Naruto. His hand was solid in hers. Their joined chakra hummed, a song only they could hear. She didn't need to speak to him. A plan formed between them in the space of a shared heartbeat. She released his hand. The golden sand coalesced around her, forming immense, articulated wings of gleaming grit. Naruto's sage markings appeared around his eyes, his body thrumming with natural energy. You sought to break a seal, Gaara said, her voice echoing with dual resonance, her own and a hint of rumbling, now subjugated power. You only succeeded in forging a new one. The battle that followed was not a fight. It was a statement. Gaara's sand, faster than ever and guided by the heightened sensory prowess of Naruto's sage mode, flowed with preternatural precision, disarming and entangling. Naruto moved within her defensive sphere, his Raisin Shuriken humming, not launched, but held as a brilliant, threatening orb of wind and light. They moved as one entity. He was her eyes and her fist, she was his shield and his cage. Their teamwork was no longer synchronization, it was unity. A single will expressed in two bodies, two powers become one devastating force. The conspirators were subdued in moments, their forbidden techniques useless against a power born not of hatred, but of profound, shared trust. When the last enemy was bound in glowing sand, the golden aura slowly faded. The extra sand settled gently to the floor. In the sudden quiet of the ruined office, they were just Naruto and Gaara again, standing amidst the wreckage, breathing heavily. He turned to her. There was sand in her hair, gold dust on her skin. She had never looked more powerful, or more exhausted. The fear in his eyes was gone, replaced by awe so deep it was reverence. Are you, he started. I am, contained, she breathed, looking at her hands. The connection to Shikaku was different. Still there, still volatile, but she felt, supported. As if the bond she shared with Naruto was now a buttress against the inner storm. You did not just pull me back. You rebuilt the foundation as it crumbled. We did, he corrected softly, taking a step closer. I just gave you the gold. The dam within her, already cracked, now gave way entirely. Not with a sob, but with a profound, shuddering release of a breath she felt she'd been holding for a lifetime. The last of her emotional restraint, the final shield around her heart, dissolved into that golden dust at their feet. She looked at him, really looked, and saw everything. Her past, her pain, her future, her hope. It was all reflected in his eyes, and he was not afraid of any of it. Naruto, she said, and her voice was steady, clear, and full of a truth that could no longer be contained. I love you. There were no fireworks. No dramatic music. Just 3 words, simple and solid as stone, settling into the space between them, changing its very nature. Naruto's eyes widened. A slow, wondrous smile broke across his face, brighter than any Nine-Tails transformation. It was the smile of a man who had finally reached the end of a very long, lonely road and found someone waiting there for him. Took you long enough, he whispered, his own voice thick with emotion. He closed the final distance, his hands coming up to cradle her face, his thumbs brushing the marks under her eyes. I've loved you since the moment I saw you crying in the sand and knew I'd never, ever let you be that lonely again. And he kissed her. It was not a gentle kiss. It was a confession, a promise, a victory. It tasted of salt, sand, and the sweet, electric charge of combined chakra. It was the sealing of a new bond, stronger than any jutsu, more enduring than any political treaty. Her hands came up to grip his wrists, not to pull away, but to anchor herself to this reality, to their reality. Outside, the real sandstorm began to calm. The moon emerged, washing the desert in clean, silver light. In the Kazekage Tower, amidst the ruins of an old life, something new and golden was born. Chapter 6, The Weight of Dawn. The world did not stop for their confession. Dawn arrived with the ruthless clarity of the desert sun, exposing the scars left by the night's chaos. The damaged tower, the bound conspirators, the lingering, static-charged air of unleashed power, it all demanded order. And Gaara was, above all else, the Kazekage. She held a council meeting at first light, in a secondary chamber. Naruto was not present. He understood, without a word being spoken, that this was Suna's business. She faced her elders clad not in the torn silks of the gala, but in her full Kazekage regalia, the dark circles under her eyes the only evidence of her ordeal. The gold flecks were gone from her gaze, but a new, unshakable solidity had taken their place. The conspiracy is severed at the root, she announced, her voice cool, carrying to the corners of the silent room. The perpetrators are in our custody. Their noble patrons in both lands will be presented with the evidence. Any retaliation will be met with the combined might of the allied shinobi forces. She paused, letting the weight of that alliance, her alliance, settle upon them. The Ichibi is contained. The attempted breach resulted not in a weakening of the seal, but in its evolution. It is stable. Elder Yome, chastened but not broken, dared a question. And the Hokage's involvement? Gaara's gaze could have frozen lava. The Hokage's actions last night saved your village from annihilation. He acted as an ally and a friend. Any further inquiry into his involvement will be considered an act of diplomatic hostility. The threat was delivered with such absolute, quiet conviction that even Yome bowed his head. The meeting dissolved. The machinery of justice and diplomacy began to grind. But for Gaara, the true test came next. Temari found her on a repaired balcony, staring at the workers below. For a long moment, the elder sister said nothing, just stood beside her. The wind whipped their hair, one blonde, one auburn, in parallel streams. He didn't leave your side, Temari said finally, her voice not sharp, but observational. Not until Kankuro and I physically pulled him away to get his own scratches looked at. The idiot was bleeding and only worried about you. Gaara felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the sun. He is consistent. Temari snorted. That's one word for it. She turned, leaning her back against the railing to study Gaara's profile. You told him. It wasn't a question. Gaara nodded, once. A slow, genuine smile spread across Temari's face, a rare, soft expression. Good. About time someone got through that sand fortress you call a heart. Her smile turned wry. Just be prepared. He's going to be insufferably happy. And he's going to want to tell everyone. The thought should have been mortifying. Instead, Gaara felt a flicker of amusement. I will manage him. You will, Temari agreed, her tone shifting to something more serious. But, Gaara, he's the Hokage. You're the Kazekage. This isn't a secret crush in the academy. The world will have opinions. There will be complications. I am aware, Gaara said, her eyes tracking a hawk's solitary flight across the azure sky. The complications began the moment he saw me as a person. We will navigate them as we have navigated everything else. Together. Temari's hand came to rest on her shoulder, a brief, solid squeeze. Then I'm happy for you. Really? A smirk returned. Just try to keep the world-saving, shock-refusing displays of affection to a minimum. It's hard on the infrastructure. Naruto's confrontation was of a different sort. Kankuro intercepted him in the medbay hallway, his face paint making his grim expression even more severe. Hokage, he grunted, arms crossed. Kankuro, Naruto replied, stopping. He met the other man's gaze without flinching. My little sister, Kankuro said, the words blunt as a hammer. She's been through hell that would have broken anyone else. She's built herself into something, whole. Fragile, but whole. I know, Naruto said, his voice low. I was there for some of that hell. I see how whole she is. It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Kankuro studied him, looking for any hint of pity, of condescension, of fleeting passion. He saw only the same stubborn, earnest light that had refused to let Gaara die years ago. Some of the tension left his shoulders. You hurt her, he said, the threat clear but quiet, and it won't be a political incident. It'll be me, my puppets, and a very deep hole in the desert. Hokage or not. Naruto didn't smile. He nodded, accepting the terms with total seriousness. I'd expect nothing less. But you won't need the hole. If I ever hurt her, I'll dig it myself. A long, assessing silence. Then, Kankuro uncrossed his arms and gave a single, sharp nod. See that you don't. He turned to leave, then glanced back. She likes the quiet, you know. Not everyone's noise. This time, Naruto did smile, soft and understanding. Yeah. I know. The farewell was a public spectacle on the Sune gates, all formal bows and correct speeches. The alliance was stronger than ever, the mutual defense pact reaffirmed. Naruto, in his Hokage cloak, was every inch the statesman. Gaara, beside him, was the picture of stoic leadership. But as he turned to go, their eyes met. No words passed. No touch. But in that glance, an entire conversation happened. A promise of letters written in messy, enthusiastic script. Of rare, precious visits. Of a connection that would now hum constantly across the distance, a new kind of sensory link made of memory and feeling, stronger than any chakra thread. He gave her a barely perceptible wink. The corner of her mouth twitched, a secret shared with the wind. Then he was gone, a flash of yellow leading his team back toward the green. Weeks bled into months. The world did not end. The alliance prospered. Scrolls flew between Konoha and Suna with unprecedented frequency, many bearing official seals, a few bearing no seal at all. Gaara found a new rhythm. The loneliness of her office was no longer an absolute, it was now a space occasionally visited by the memory of a loud laugh, the phantom warmth of a hand in hers. She would reread his latest scroll, filled with outrageous stories about Konoha's reconstruction, Boruto's antics, and Shikamaru's headaches, and feel a smile touch her lips, a true, unguarded smile her aides were beginning to recognize. One evening, deep into a lonely night watch, a shimmering golden chakra fox, no larger than a house cat, popped into existence on her desk. It was a message, a tiny piece of his will and Kurama's cooperation. "Can't sleep," his voice, tinny but warm, emanated from it. "The moon's huge over Konoha. Reminded me of the garden. You okay?" She looked at the playful, glowing construct. Her sand lifted, forming a tiny, perfect replica of Suna's main tower next to it. "I am well," she said aloud to the fox. "The desert is quiet. It misses your noise." The fox yipped a silent laugh and vanished in a puff of gold sparks. The warmth lingered. The final scene was not an ending, but a glimpse of a continuum. It was Naruto who made the journey this time, an unannounced, personal visit. He found her not in the tower, but on the highest dunes beyond the village wall, sitting alone, watching the stars begin to pierce the velvet twilight. He sat down beside her, their shoulders brushing. No greeting was needed. The silence was comfortable, full. After a long while, he spoke, his voice soft. "It's weird. For so long, my dream was to be Hokage, to be seen by everyone. And I love it. I do. But now, the best part of my day is when it's quiet, and I can just be seen by you." Gaara leaned her head, very gently, against his shoulder. It was a gesture of unimaginable trust, of perfect peace. "I spent a lifetime teaching people to fear my gaze," she murmured. "With you, I only wish to be perceived." He turned his head, his lips brushing her hair. "You are. Every amazing, complicated, golden-cracked piece of you." Below them, Sunagakure glittered, a testament to her will. Far to the east, beyond the horizon, Konoha thrived, a testament to his. Between them stretched the challenging, beautiful world they were tasked with leading. But here, on the sands under the emerging stars, they were not Kage. They were not Jinchuriki. They were not weapons or vessels or legends. They were simply Naruto and Gaara. Two lonely stars who had defied gravity and found a shared orbit, their light now forever intertwined, painting the long, dark night with a gentle, enduring, golden glow. Finn.